Horns, written by Joe Hill. Chapter 1. Ignatius Martin Parrish spent the night drunk and doing terrible things. He woke the next morning with a headache, put his hands to his temples, and felt something unfamiliar, a pair of knobby-pointed protuberances. He was so ill, wet-eyed and weak, he didn't think anything of it at first, was too hung over for thinking or worry. But when he was swaying above the toilet, he glanced at himself in the mirror over the sink, and saw he had grown horns while he slept. He lurched in surprise, and for the second time in 12 hours, he pissed on his feet. Chapter 2. He shoved himself back into his khaki shorts, he was still wearing yesterday's clothes, and leaned over the sink for a better look. They weren't much as horns went, each of them about as long as his ring finger, thick at the base but soon narrowing to a point as they hooked upward. The horns were covered in his own too pale skin, except at the very tips, which were an ugly, inflamed red, as if the needle points at the ends of them were about to poke through the flesh. He touched one and found the point sensitive, a little sore. He ran his fingers along the side of each and felt the density of bone beneath the stretched tight smoothness of skin. His first thought was that somehow he had brought this affliction upon himself. Late the night before, he had gone into the woods beyond the old foundry, to the place where Marion Williams had been killed. People had left remembrances at a diseased black cherry tree, its bark peeling away to show the flesh beneath. Marion had been found like that, clothes peeled away to show the flesh beneath. There were photographs of her placed delicately in the branches, a vase of pussy willows, Hallmark cards warped and stained from exposure to the elements. Someone, Marion's mother probably, had left a decorative cross with yellow nylon roses stapled to it and a plastic virgin, who smiled with the beatific idiocy of the functionally retarded. He couldn't stand that simpering smile. He couldn't stand the cross either, planted in the place where Marion had bled to death from her smashed-in head. A cross with yellow roses. What a fucking thing. It was like an electric chair with floral print cushions, a bad joke. It bothered him that someone wanted to bring Christ out here. Christ was a year too late to do any good. He hadn't been anywhere around when Marion needed him. Ig had ripped the decorative cross down and stamped it into the dirt. He had to take a leak, and he did it on the Virgin, drunkenly urinating on his own feet in the process. Perhaps that was blasphemy enough to bring on this transformation, but no. He sensed that there had been more. What else, he couldn't recall. He'd had a lot to drink. He turned his head this way and that, studying himself in the mirror, lifting his fingers to touch the horns, once and again. How deep did the bone go? Did the horns have roots pushing back into his brain? At this thought the bathroom darkened, as if the light bulb overhead had briefly gone dim. The welling darkness, though, was behind his eyes, in his head, not in the light fixtures. He held the sink and waited for the feeling of weakness to pass. He saw it then. He was going to die. Of course he was going to die. Something was pushing into his brain, all right. A tumor. The horns weren't really there. They were metaphorical, imaginary. He had a tumor eating his brain, and it was causing him to see things. And if he was to the point of seeing things, then it was probably too late to save him. The idea that he might be going to die brought with it a surge of relief, a physical sensation, like coming up for air after being underwater too long. Ig had come close to drowning once and had suffered from asthma as a child, and to him, contentment was as simple as being able to breathe. "I'm sick," he breathed. "I'm dying." It improved his mood to say it aloud. He studied himself in the mirror, expecting the horns to vanish now that he knew they were hallucinatory, but it didn't work that way. The horns remained. He fretfully tugged at his hair, trying to see if he could hide them, at least until he got to the doctor's, then quit when he realized how silly it was to try to conceal something no one would be able to see but him.